gentlemen, with your kind attention and permission, I have the honor of presenting to you one of the most remarkable men in the world. How remarkable? He's swift.
Hello. My name is Fritz KO, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Fritz KO Vids.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
People that adhere to political correctness are, in my opinion, retarded faggots. Now, I can see some of you sitting in judgment thinking, oh, retarded faggots, that is an offensive phrase. But it's not that offensive a phrase. Not when you compare it to my impersonation of a retarded faggot. I want to copy me. I'm reading your mama. That's offensive. Compared to that, phrase doesn't seem as bad now, does it?
Last week drew the wrath of the liberal website Media Matters, who said that their jalapeno flag cover was the sort of stereotype that ignores Latinos as a multifaceted community and relegates them to chili pepper consuming constituents. Hey, Media Matters, can I say one thing to you? Shut the fuck up. Look at this insane headline. College president forced to apologize after saying all lives matter. You know what happened? A college president sent out an email in support of the protesters in Ferguson, but said all lives matter instead of Black Lives Matter. And then had to apologize? I'm sorry, I meant Black lives. Fuck all lives.
All I know is that you've changed. Ever since you joined this PC thing, you just bully people and wait for people to say anything improper so that you can jump down their throats for whatever words he or she used.
He or she is an agenderphobic microaggression, Sharon. You are a bigot.
The dominant narrative is your sticker. The dominant narrative in America is white people are evil, white people suck, we should be ashamed of ourselves. And
I don't think we should be ashamed of ourselves. I think that we should take responsibility for the system that we've created.
The best system in the world?
Oh, we do not have the best system in the world.
Who has a better system?
There are many European countries that are much better off than us.
Oh, you mean like the European countries with a higher density of whites, like Northern Europe?
That's one way to phrase it, I guess.
You don't mean Turkey.
No.
You don't mean Eastern Europe
with
the communists. So the only time you can come up with a system that's better than America, it's a country that's more white than America.
I mean, we do have a wonderful country, and we need to take time to assimilate people, not let them live in ghettos and bring in their cultures. There's a reason they left their cultures to come to our culture, and we didn't leave our culture to go to theirs.
But I actually have a solution to California prison overcrowding, and I'm sure you would agree with it. A huge percentage of California inmates are foreign nationals. They're from Mexico and Central America. Why not deport them?
Well, I wouldn't be so sure that I agree with that there, Tucker. But what I will say is that our prisons are full of
so if you can't afford, wait, hold on. If you can't afford to keep people in prison, and you can't, and so they're getting out early and murdering cops, why should taxpayers in California take up the slack to house people who shouldn't be here in the first place? I don't understand that. Why is that the obligation of California to house foreign nationals?
I think the problem is a lot more complicated than that. I think if we're looking at the resources, we can follow models that are working in states like Texas and Utah and Louisiana, where they're actually reallocating their resources instead of just housing people. They're using their resources to rehabilitate them for victim services, for crime prevention, to strengthen local governments.
I get it. Those are all great. That's all great, and I'm for free ice cream and ponies for everybody. But if you can't afford to keep people locked up, dangerous people, like California, for example, won't tell us, the public, what percentage of its inmates are foreign nationals. Why is that? Oh, I'll tell you why. because illegal aliens are a massive political bloc in California, and they've got politicians in their pocket, and they're being protected by politicians. But why shouldn't I, as a native Californian, have a right to know what percentage of the prison population is not American citizens?
There are lots of people who are in prison. Some of them are undocumented. Some of them are not. Some of them are U.S. citizens. But I think we need to be using this moment not to focus on the percentage of foreign nationals who are incarcerated in California, but to focus on how we can actually bring people home in a manner that makes our streets safer.
No, but okay, I get it. I get it. Hold on. I agree, but why shouldn't I?
Let me finish.
I am too, but why shouldn't I know that? It's a really simple question. What percentage of the prison population is illegal? Like, why are we paying for them? Just get out of our country. You're illegal already. Like, why shouldn't I be able to know the answer to that question? Why are you hiding the numbers from me? That's a fair question, isn't it?
So I don't work for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, but what I can speak to is the fact that our criminal justice system is failing to actually rehabilitate people. And we know that there are smart solutions out there that are being employed across the country and across the state of California. We have a model prison here, San Quentin prison, where there's rehabilitative programming going on. And I'll tell you something very interesting. You were talking about nonviolent versus violent offenders. I recently learned that of the 700 people who committed violent offenses as youth who have been released in the last 3 years, not a single one of them has gone back for a violent act. In fact, only one of them has gone back at all, and that was for a drug violation. So 700 people who have received rehabilitative programming and cognitive behavioral programming have actually come home and not ended up committing more crimes or creating more victims, but become leaders in their community.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I wrote a book on this one. I mean, those numbers are so... That would be the most effective rehabilitation program in the history of the world. If that's really true,
I'm happy to show you
it should be replicated
I'm happy
everywhere.
to show you the numbers for the folks
skeptical.
who came home under SB 260 and 261. And I'm happy to share with you the data that both conservatives and progressives have adopted
if that's true,
that shows that programming works.
You just solved the age-old question of human sin. I hope you did. Mayor Sloan, thanks for joining us.
Supporting the president. You ain't supporting shit, nigga. Bitch ass motherfucker.
Okay.
It's gonna go great in my fucking fireplace, bitch.
Alright, have fun with it.
Absolutely. Middle-class jobs are important. We need immigration reform, real immigration reform. We're a nation of laws, but we're also a nation of immigrants. So whoever, look, we understand what the American people need, which is why we're going across the country.
Wait a second. Wait, I'm totally confused. You're running simultaneously on the idea you're going to create more jobs, but you want more low-wage, low-skilled people to move here.
Immigration
reform. How do those two work in tandem?
Sure.
You can call it what you want, but you're saying we need more immigrants, but we also need more jobs. If we have too few jobs, why would we import more immigrants?
Immigrants pay taxes. Immigrants, that we're talking about billions of dollars being injected into our economy, Tucker. More immigration, legal immigration, good immigration, expanding our immigration system is only going to help us and create more jobs. Look at the numbers.
So how, just tell me, how will, actually, I'm familiar with the numbers. I don't think that you are. How will importing millions more poor people create more middle-class jobs? And where's that happened exactly?
All immigrants are not poor people. That is a stereotype. That's actually not true. A lot of immigrants are hardworking.
Well, actually, the majority of our immigrants, I'm not saying they're not hardworking. I'm just saying they're poor. The majority of our immigrants are poor. And so how will importing more of them create more jobs? How has that happened? Where has that happened? And how is it going to happen again?
Well, a few things. Number one, we know that a lot of immigrants, by the way, that are under the H-1B visas, which are too low, right? Too low of a number. They're engineers. They're scientists. They are coming to our country to study in the best university. And then you have the other immigrants who want to do jobs that a majority of Americans don't want to do in the first place.
But how is that creating jobs? I don't think you've thought this through, Jose. So I guess this may be the problem. You may be illustrating right now the problem. If you're going to have a message, a program, and say to voters, here's what I'm going to bring you if you elect me, you have to be able to explain it. So you're basically saying, we're going to bring you more jobs, but we're also going to bring you a lot more poor people, but somehow that's all going to work, but I'm not exactly sure how, and then throwing a bumper sticker or two in a slogan, but like, trust us? Don't you think you should think through exactly how you're going to create those jobs?
more immigration, legal immigration into the system is going to create more jobs. More people that want jobs that Americans don't want. That is a fact. That is the truth.
But that's not creating more jobs. That's taking, as you just said, jobs that Americans don't want. I thought the idea was to create more middle-class jobs. How is going to bring in like waves of new low-skilled workers? Yeah, but how does that work?
Why can't we do both?
Do you know? Have you thought this through at all? Me, that's why you guys keep losing. Because you say dumb things that don't make any sense. I mean, look, I'm not against immigration. I'm totally for making middle-class jobs. I just don't know how they work together, and neither do you. And maybe you should figure it out.
It would be better.
And then you can explain to people, and then they'll support you.
It would be better if we had a president that was willing to work with the Democrats. That would be nice, but that's not happening. Look, we got a president that is being investigated, as you know, time and time again. I don't know if he'll make it to 2020. Right. What do you think?
Yeah, Trump's bad. All right, I don't know. Jose, I don't know. But even at this rate, even if he doesn't, Democrats will not be the beneficiary of it. Trump may be bad, but voters are in no mood to support Democrats over him. I've just noticed that. But
that's
whatever.
Not true.
Come back when you got that all figured out for me.
We're getting better.
I'm looking to just make a statement by being here, and I think the protesters are doing the same. And props to them for the ones who are doing it nonviolently, but I think that's a very rare thing indeed.
Are you surprised?
I think the people watching tonight should look at the people protesting and look at what color hat they're wearing. It's certainly not red.
But as you can see, she was wearing red. As we continued the interview, Kiara Robles paid for it.
Are you surprised, ma'am?
In a free country, with free speech, in this iconic place, no matter what a person's politics, that happened.
Ma'am, are you all right?
Yes, I am. Thank you for asking.
Well, first of all, you have to recognize the mistakes of the past. I can't take this border issue because I wasn't allowed into anybody's circle after my audience raised $3 million, and we risked everything to go down to the border. And we brought churches together. We actually fed the homeless. I was mocked for bringing them soccer balls, which people now say is a good thing because at least they have soccer balls at summer camp. And on the other side, no one in the media would even listen. No one would listen when I said,
Glenn, that's not true. There was lots of coverage
DHS
of it in 2014. I remember you going to the border in 2014. Obama's policy might have been ugly. It's a lot worse now.
Was there
of course not.
this
there
kind
weren't
of
as many
coverage
as kids.
when you had?
There weren't as many kids
course.
in jail.
Oh, stop it!
Stop what?
Stop
there were
it.
not as many
Stop
kids
it.
in jail.
You're telling me, so it's the number. So what's the number, Brian, that we care about putting kids in cages? What's the number that we start caring about when we're separating
we care,
family,
and the
when
more
we're
there are,
separating
the
children?
more we care.
What's the number?
The worse
okay.
it gets, the more coverage there should be. Do you disagree with that? The worse it gets, the more coverage there should be.
No, Brian. When we're doing things to children and breaking them up, no, I don't think there's a problem with covering if it's 10 kids. It should be covered. No one wanted to see it.
And when there's
by
thousands,
the way, that time...
there was a lot of coverage in 2014. But I respect that there's more now.
Look,
okay.
Sorry,
go ahead.
This is why people who don't necessarily even support Donald Trump are saying, you know what? I've baked in the lies. I know. I got it. But the journalists now are like saying, well, two can play that game. Neither one of you are self-aware enough to know that there is justice and mercy. One's arguing justice, one's arguing mercy, or they say they are, but they're not. All they're doing is playing politics, and the American people are tired of it. Who is talking about an actual solution on this? Who's actually done something? Who's actually consistent and cared when it was a Democrat in office and cared when it's a Republican in office? You know, those people exist around the country, and they're watching you two, the media and Donald Trump, playing this little game back and forth, and they're sick of it. They don't want to hear about it from either side.
I want the critique because I invited you on. I'm self-aware enough to know that we need to talk about this because I know it's a problem. The mainstream media is having a very hard time. The mainstream media is having a very hard time reaching Trump's base. That's a fact. We see that in all the polling.
Yeah, well, then here's the deal. Brian, you all have my phone number. I've reached out to all of you. in the past and said, let's have a conversation not on the air. You really want to understand? You want to hear the other side?
Why can't our viewers?
Then let's have a conversation where everybody's
not interested. Why can't you tell our viewers right now?
Because it's all about ratings. Because this is all about ratings. This isn't about ratings. This is about saving our country, bringing us together. Stop dividing us. I mean, I can't.
So to be clear, you think that I'm dividing the country? You think I'm dividing the country for ratings by booking you?
Brian, stop driving. Look at what you're doing. When did this become about you? This is about the media and the administration. That's what you guys want to make it into.
If it was about me, I would do like a 10-minute commentary the way you used to. If it was about me, I'd get out a blackboard the way you used to.
Okay. Well, then maybe you should.
I mean, the point is, what do you mean it's making it about me? I don't see how I've made it about me. I want to know how.
It's not about it. You just said, never mind. Look, Brian, if you want to have a conversation, the media really wants to know, great, we can have that conversation. But every time I've approached, everybody always says yes. But as soon as it gets tough or uncomfortable, nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in looking at themselves and saying, what did I do? I know what I've done. I know what I've done. I've tried to make amends, and I'm trying to...
And we've talked about that before. I completely agree with you. And we all do need to be more self-reflective. I do have to ask you, there's this new headline on the Daily Beast saying that your company's in trouble, that you were trying to find a buyer. Is this related to the point about people not talking to each other? That if you want to create that media company, there's not interest? What's going on with that?
Wow. Brian, thanks a lot. I think that's the most ridiculous question I've ever heard. I'm sitting here ready to talk to you about the detaining of children and parents and trying to break families apart, something that has been happening with Janet Reno. That's why it went to the Supreme Court in the first place. With Janet Reno, it's been happening. We want to stop it, and you want to play those games? Have a nice day.
What game did I just play?
Latinos here in this country that do agree that the immigration problem is a problem, and it does need to be addressed, and it does need to be fixed.
Interesting.
But making those comments, those racist comments, do not help.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that you know what I mean. Like when I'm saying
there's more jobs to be
in LA. They always
but
they don't.
Latinos are not only the only people.
I didn't mean it like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it like that.
Okay.
Like, I'm not part of this argument with.
I think what you're saying is that Trump himself
needs to look
probably relies on a lot of these people that he's insulting.
Nobody can stand this much share. This is her new album. If this doesn't drive them out, nothing will.
All right, I just wanted to real quick understand why you think Donald Trump is a racist.
I think in particular, the comments he's made about Mexican immigrants.
You mean illegal immigrants?
No, all of them. But
no, he said illegal.
Okay, well, about illegals too. He said that, they're not sending their best, they're sending their rapists and such. And
so are you going to deny, whoa, are you going to deny that illegal immigrants are raping people in the United States?
I will deny that the problem is that. I will deny they do it more frequently than your average American citizen does.
But you will accept it's happening.
It has happened more than once, probably. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
You wouldn't want to do something about that issue?
Well, if they're doing it at much less than the rate of the current population, I don't really see how it's a problem. If they're in general more law-abiding than us.
So who is Trump racist against?
He's racist against them, saying that it's more common.
Who's them, though? Who is them?
Mexican Americans and Mexicans.
But he's never said anything negative about Mexican Americans. He has many American Latinos that actually support him, and what he said about the judge was accurate.
Oh, I gotta get this. If you are allowed to express, I am allowed to express.
Why is Trump a white supremacist? Just give me one example. Why is he racist? One example. That's all I need.
I don't even need to say anything to you.
Oh, I love it. Because I'm a white male.
The fact that you can't answer those questions means you're not paying attention.
But what does the fact that you can't answer the questions mean?
Do I need to refer to the fact that he calls all Mexicans rapists?
He never called them.
He didn't. You're right. He didn't.
He
did
not.
He
did not.
Check your facts, man. He did not.
Am I allowed to speak, or are you just responding to my point?
I am responding to your point.
Bro, I'm like...
I don't understand the cameras.
You don't understand
like,
many
you're
things.
trying to find problems.
Come on, how is Trump racist? Just name one thing. Just name one thing he actually said or did. Just one evidence.
We all realize that no matter what I say, you're going to try and turn it into
No.
something.
Please answer. Please answer
You're not
the question.
even letting me talk. You're talking over me.
Please answer the question. Why is Trump a racist? Specific reasons.
Donald Trump is a symbol of what is wrong with this country. Donald Trump is a white male who has inherited privilege that he cannot even, take a...
He's a fucking white male!
I thought you were going to say a specific reason of when Trump has been racist. That's what we ask. Not that he's what's wrong with America. We want specific reasons.
So you don't think building a wall in between America and Mexico is racist?
We either have a border or we don't.
Borders, sir. Every country has borders.
Walls are not racist. They're not semi-permeable depending on race. That's not everyone.
Every border has a vested interest in protecting its national security. Undocumented people are not a race.
Right. Let's talk about other countries that have walls in between themselves.
Like Mexico, where if you come from South America, they deport your house.
Yep.
Are they racist against South Americans, or are they they have vested interest in protecting their national security?
I am not denying that y'all have knowledge of what happens at borders.
Not you do. But just to start the dialogue by calling us white supremacists, especially since a lot of us are Mexican, it just doesn't create a conversation, right? You want to have a dialogue.
The Donald Trump campaign is overly aggressive, and the fact that y'all are here representing it is why.
Hold on. I have to object because this young man wore a Donald Trump hat and got spit on, shoved, physically assaulted. Has there been cases of people assaulting Bernie supporters on this campus? We have one that's been reported. Has there been reports of Bernie supporters getting...
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, yes, it's horrible what happened to you. I was overly aggressive to start this. I think it's undeniable that we have started a dialogue.
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
What happened to you is not okay. My point about how Donald Trump's campaign is overly aggressive and represents a lot of things that are wrong with this country is why people are acting like that towards you. It's not okay that they're doing it. It's not okay that I started this dialogue by yelling at y'all, but there are emotions nationwide involved in this.
Can you name one of the things about American society that Donald Trump represents? Because you say he represents the worst in culture. Can you put a name to just one of those
What
things?
would you say Bernie Sanders' #1 point is?
No, hold on. That wasn't the question.
No, that wasn't the question.
No. But I'm answering his question.
Okay, let me...
Deportation! Education, not deportation! Education, not deportation! Get over here!
Guys, get over here!
Block the freeway!
Get off the fucking highway! Get the fuck off the highway! Get the fuck off!
Let's go to Boca Raton, Florida. She's on the other side. Joe in Boca Raton, welcome. You say the Arizona law is wrong. Is that correct?
Yes, I think it's absolutely racist that they're telling the illegal aliens that they can't come into Arizona. They can do what they want to. I mean, we're America. We have to have open...
Wait. You're saying too many things at once. They're saying what?
That we need to have...
You're saying... Wait, ma'am. Are you aware of the fact that a country has borders? Are you aware of that?
I'm saying that we need to get rid of our borders so we can welcome all forms and walks of life.
Of course, you're pulling my leg.
I'm serious. Just look at how your ancestors got here.
Well, they didn't come here illegally. Maybe yours did. How did yours get here? Did they come here illegally?
I don't know, but they got over here somehow, and now.
Well, apparently they pulled from the lowest level of the gene pool from where you came from. That you don't even know how a nation is defined. How many people do you think this country could sustain with open borders? Is there a limit, an upper limit in your mind?
I think we could sustain so many people because there's capitalism.
I said how many? How many people are in America today? How many millions?
600 million.
Oh, my God. Oh, boy, we're in trouble, aren't we? So you just guessed at that, I could see, because that's not the correct number. No, okay, we'll give you another chance. How many people do you think the United States of America could sustain if we had no borders and anybody could just enter the country? How many people?
we need to put limits on people's income because people are making way too much money, and they need to.
So, in other words, it's not the number of people here; it's the amount of money people are making.
Yes, it's the greed in America. We need to.
I see. How much money do you make a year, Joe?
Nothing. Right now, I'm on a welfare check, but that doesn't matter anyway.
Ah, you're on a welfare check. That's why you're so benevolent with other people's money. So you're telling men like me who work for a living, who pay your welfare check, that I should be limited in how much I make so you can make more money doing nothing?
Well, I think that you don't pay my welfare check. I think Obama pays my welfare check. And
Wait, what do you mean? Obama pays it out of his pocket? Where does Obama get the money from, Joe?
I don't know his stash. I don't know where he gets it. But the main thing is...
What do you mean you don't know where he gets it from? It's called the public treasury. Where does the money come from into the public treasury, Joe?
Illegal aliens who work for a living, and then they pass the money to the government.
Joe, you're a very sick person. I really pity you, Joe, and you never should have been able to get on the show because a man wants to find hell as a place where there is no reason. And you just dragged me into hell, Joe.
So since you're in college and you're thinking of the big things, the big ideas here, you're upset that there are undocumented students, as you say, on your campus, and you don't think President-elect Trump is sympathetic enough to them. So let's sort of pull back a little bit. Who do you think has a right to come to this country? You apparently assume that these people have a right to be on your campus taking a state-subsidized education. Who has a right to come to the United States?
I believe that everyone should be able to come to the United States. We are always and have been and are still a nation of immigrants. And so I believe that, you know, there is no line. We can let in as many people as we choose in terms of policy, and it's, you know, there's artificial limits set on who can come in, who can't, from what countries, and from what countries can't, whether they're skilled or not, and I feel like that is abandoning our heritage as a nation of immigrants.
So anybody who wants to come should come. Now, most of those people who do come, the low-skilled ones, are a net cost to taxpayers. They take more in services than they produce. Gotcha, bitch. You know the supply and you know the basic economic laws. So you believe then that taxpayers have a moral obligation to subsidize anybody who wants to come here?
I'm not sure where you're getting those figures from. I've heard different figures. I've heard studies that say that undocumented immigrants actually provide a net benefit to the economy, and a lot of these studies that claim that undocumented immigrants are a drain or, you know, taking money away from taxpayers or something like that are using kind of biased.
Yeah. Well, you heard wrong because it's actually not even close between education and infrastructure and health care. Food subsidies, housing subsidies, it's literally not even close. But the point is, do you consider the effect this has on the rest of the population? You say anybody around the world has a right to come here. You learned that in school and you believe it uncritically. Do you think that everyone else who lives in this country has a right to say, wait a second, we should be able to choose who comes here?
So we shouldn't forget that we're talking about a president-elect that has pledged to deport 11 million people from this country. And so that's what I would like to keep the focus on, is the tremendous human rights violation that would entail. A deportation force rounding up people who are undocumented, people who have been here for their entire lives, almost. People, you know, we had a person at our rally today who was, you know, who was brought here at 3 months old. And he's, you know, he's undocumented, but he's an American. He deserves to be here. And you know,
I get it. No, I've heard it before. Alex, do you think people have a right to lock their doors? Or do you think they have an obligation to let anyone in who chooses to come? Well, you're saying that the United States has no right to prevent people who want to come here from coming here. And I'm just asking you, does the same apply to us as individuals? Do you have a right to keep people out who want to share your apartment with you?
I think that's not really a direct analogy. That obviously a nation state, a sovereign nation state, is very different from an individual.
Well, it belongs to its citizens, so they should be able to decide who comes in or out. Wouldn't you agree? Gotcha, bitch. Doesn't the country belong to its citizens?
I think.
Victoria Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Freedom of speech is a fundamental British value, which is undermined by so-called safe spaces in our universities, where a sense of righteous entitlement by a minority of students that means that their wish not to be offended shuts down debate. As students around the country return to their places of learning at the start of this new academic year, does my right honourable friend agree that university is precisely the place for lively debate, and that fear of being offended must not trump freedom of speech?
Well, I absolutely agree with my honourable friend. We want our universities not just to be places of learning, but to be places where there can be open debate, which is challenged, and people can get involved in that. And I think everybody is finding this concept of safe spaces quite extraordinary, frankly. We want to see that innovation of thought taking place in our universities. That's how we develop as a country, as a society, and as an economy, and I absolutely agree with my honourable friend.
The first illegal immigrant lawyer in the state of New York, and he joins us tonight. Caesar, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tucker.
So this makes, I got to say, I think normal people a lot less sympathetic to so-called dreamers. The idea that you're in a country illegally and you're standing in the middle of an intersection preventing citizens from getting to work. You're making basically violent demands in public when you're not even a citizen. I mean, do you see why maybe this is a counterproductive strategy and kind of offensive?
Well, regardless of whether you agree with the protests or not, they have a constitutional right to express their opinion. But to the point about...
No, actually, stop. Stop with this. I mean, you're a lawyer. They don't have a constitutional right to block me from getting to work in the middle of a public street. I'm sorry, they don't.
You may disagree with it, but again, this is about actually not...
No, it's not disagreeing with it. I'm giving you the fact. You don't have a constitutional right to stand in the middle of the street and prevent traffic from going.
Absolutely, you do. This is about making sure that... And again,
then why were they arrested? Well, I thought you were a lawyer.
Well, absolutely. Obviously, they're doing the civil disobedience, and obviously they're expressing. That's why they're being arrested, because obviously they're enforcing the law. But again,
okay, so they don't have a wait. No, I mean, just wait. Hold on. I wouldn't stop you on this small point if you weren't an attorney, the first illegal alien attorney in New York. But just to be clear, you don't have a constitutional right to block traffic. You have a constitutional right as a citizen to express your views. It's protected by the First Amendment, thank God. But you don't have a constitutional right to get in people's way on a public street, period. Russians have a First Amendment right, according to you, I guess, to block my way home after work. But
well, they don't have the same on the way home. That's why this protester got arrested.
Right,
and I think, but they do have the right.
Thank you for finally admitting that. No, but look, the point is the same. That if you're not an American citizen, you don't get to shape, influence my laws. You don't get to choose my leaders. You don't get to run my country. Only Americans do. That's why there's a difference between citizens and non-citizens. And once again, you're trying to erase that difference. There's no other country in the world that will put up with this kind of nonsense, but we're too nice, and therefore we do. Do you see my point?
This is why the United States is a very special place, because even though U.S. citizens have the right to vote, even though they have everything, we have the right to, many people, to express their views, to be protected against unreasonable search and seizures, and we have certain constitutional rights that it applies to everyone, and that's fundamental.
Are you a citizen, by the way, Caesar?
I am not. But I do hold the Constitution that applies to everyone. So when you say
we, it's not really we. You're not a citizen of this country.
I am an American.
You seem like a nice guy and everything.
Story.
No, but you're not an American. I mean, there's a legal definition here. I'm not attacking you personally.
What is the legal definition for being an American?
The legal definition is citizenship. That's what the definition is. It's really simple.
No, absolutely.
Are you a citizen? Can you vote in our elections, or can't you?
I cannot vote in the elections, but I can voice my opinion as an American. And I am going to be an American pretty soon, because I'm going to continue to advocate and to represent my community and to demand, just as many Americans have demanding
you're in someone else's country, and you get again. I'm not attacking you personally.
Of course.
I just think the distinction is a meaningful one. We want to be very clear of
what it means to be an American. Being American does not mean a piece of paper. Being American is about holding certain values, about freedom, about liberty.
You actually don't hold those values. It's about believing in the rule of law, and you don't. So actually, you just invalidated your claim to Americanness, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Caesar, thank you for joining us.
I'm not understanding your question.
Well, you said there's 12 million aspiring Americans here, and my point is all 12 million aren't aspiring, and all 12 million couldn't pass any background check, even one by the ACLU or a criminal defense attorney. Surely you're not including the person that killed her son in the 12 million aspiring Americans.
I'm not sure that I used the term aspiring.
Well, you said 12 million. You spoke as if the entire population is deserving of citizenship. That's precisely what you said.
I do believe that the 12 million who are here need to be considered for a pathway to
How about the one that killed her son? How about the one that killed her son?
It's a criminal. I hope he's been dealt with as a criminal.
So it's 12 million minus one. How about the one that killed?
Community. Again,
it's 12 million minus one. How about the one that killed Miss Root's daughter?
That's a criminal case.
All right, so that's 12 million minus two.
Policy.
How about the gang members in Sheriff Jenkins' jurisdiction?
If we're talking about safety in our communities, then let's
talk
about safety
the gang members in Sheriff Jenkins' jurisdiction? Are those part of the 12 million with which you made reference?
I do not know. What I do
you don't know whether or not a gang member should be included on a path to citizenship?
What I do know is that our communities deserve greater safety, and it's not going to happen when we pit
I just respectfully
victims.
Disagree with you, Bishop. American citizens should not be victimized by crime. I think we can agree with that. And American citizens should not have to wait until someone who is not here legally commits another crime before we decide to get serious about enforcing our immigration laws. So my question to you is this. Of the 12 million, if that number is right, minusing the one that killed Miss Wilkerson's son, minus the one that killed Miss Root's daughter, minus the gang members, minus the 300,000 that have already been adjudicated to have committed another criminal offense, how would you go about identifying the good ones from the bad ones?
The way we identify good ones from the bad ones every single day, by looking at their character, by seeing how they're
how are we supposed to do that if we don't even know who they are, Bishop?
Well, we won't know who they are if we continue to treat them the way we're treating them now.
No. There's a way to know. But you just said you don't like the way that we've chosen to do it. You don't want local law enforcement.
I do not think that is a helpful way.
Well, let me ask you this,
Immigrant
Bishop.
communities want to help. They want to
why
keep
don't
their community safe, but they won't come forward if they think that they're going to be picked up by us.
Oh, no.
It's going to threaten their lives.
We saw a perfect
example. To be left behind.
It's going to be really tough for the court reporter if you continue to talk while I'm asking questions. She's got a tough enough job. So how about we just agree to go one at a time, okay? How about Kate Steinle's murder in San Francisco? That's a sanctuary city. You wrote an op-ed on it. Do you remember that?
I did.
And you advocated for policies that prevent gun violence. You remember writing that?
Yes.
We have some of those policies. In fact, we call them laws. There's a law against shooting someone on a pier who's walking beside her father. We already have that law. We already have a law where convicted felons can't purchase or possess firearms. Do you know that Kate Steinle's killer was a convicted felon?
Yes.
We also have a law that if you're not here legally, either overstayed a visa or cross the border without permission, that you cannot legally possess or purchase a firearm. Did you know that was already a law? So what policies are you advocating for that would have saved Kate Steinle's life in addition to the ones we already have?
That's a very tragic situation, but you cannot blame all immigrants.
I'm not. I'm just blaming the one that shot her.
For the action of one person.
No.
That's what you are doing.
Your approach is to wait until the murder and then do the deportation. And my approach is try to have as few body bags as we can possibly have, try to identify those that are not aspiring citizens before they kill somebody's son or daughter in San Francisco. That's my objective, to identify them before the crime. So my question to you is, how are you going to do that?
I would argue that we need trust policies where immigrants, documented and undocumented, can come forth to report crimes and to report when they too have been victims of crimes without the fear of being deported. We need that kind of trust. Otherwise, these families will not come forth. Immigrants do not want gangs in this country or in their communities. Many of them are
you don't hear me talking
in
generalities, Bishop. That was you that did that. I made a point in my opening of saying that we shouldn't be talking to generalities. I do find it bitterly ironic that you are talking about trust among the immigrant community, and you don't even trust local law enforcement to enforce our immigration laws. I find that richly ironic. Why don't you trust local law enforcement to enforce our immigration laws?
I do not trust the procedures and policies under which we are expecting governance and policing to happen in our communities.
Bishop, you trust them in murder cases. You trust them in child sex abuse cases. You trust them in narcotics cases. You trust them in kidnapping cases. You trust them in traffic violation cases. You trust them in every category of crime, except you just don't want the sheriff enforcing immigration laws. And yet you want to talk about building trust with the law enforcement community, and you don't trust him to enforce immigration laws, even though you trust him to enforce every other category? And you want to talk about trust. Did I hear you right?
I want to talk about trust policies, yes.
Well, I want to talk about the law. I want to talk about the law. You said we're a nation of immigrants. That may be true. We're also a nation of laws. And the ability to pick and choose the ones that you want based on political expediency or your view of theology is going to undermine this republic very quickly. And as a result, we'll have more panels with more moms.
Laws of this country change when we realize that they're immoral or unjust.
Well, then you can run for Congress and change the law. But as it stands right now, we're going to enforce it. If you don't like the law, you can change it. But what you can't do is just selectively decide which ones you want to enforce and which ones you don't, because that's called anarchy.
Congressman, we have broken immigration policies. That's what needs to be addressed.
Okay. But you just sat there and listed all the laws that we passed to try to address it. You didn't like a single one of them. You didn't like the law. You didn't like the law empowering local law enforcement. You don't like the fact that we would deny federal funding to sanctuary cities that harbor people like the man who killed Kate Steinle. So it's not a question of passing laws, Bishop, with all due respect. It's a question of passing laws you like.
It's a question of passing laws that are just.
All right, and if there's anything more relative in the world than the word just, I don't know what it is. So rather than aspire to justice, I'm just going to aspire that we actually enforce the law, because that is the community's manifestation of justice. We take what we think about justice and mercy, and then we codify it in something we call the law. And by the way, Bishop, these aspiring citizens that you talk about, the 12 million minus 1, 2, God knows how many, in their oath of citizenship, there are a half dozen references to the law. A half dozen references to the law in the oath that we expect new citizens to take. I think it'd be a really neat idea if we actually enforce the law so that citizenship oath actually had a little bit of meaning, because right now it doesn't seem to.
First of all, this sneering mocking of Americans who suddenly wake up one day and find out no one is speaking English in their neighborhoods, I think is extremely elitist and snooty. I'm quite sure you all wouldn't like it if your kids came home from school and they sounded like Sarah Palin. I think that would be a cultural shock for you. Certainly in California, most of the neighborhoods that have gone all Hispanic are black neighborhoods, and not through casual movement. One of the ways our culture changes with immigration, both legal and illegal, is there is not a lot of tolerance, as much tolerance as Americans have. You have black gangs, or rather Hispanic gangs, going into the black neighborhoods, screaming epithets, throwing bottles at their houses. The LA Times has written this up extensively. So I think it's very sneering and mocking of you to be referring to mostly African American and other immigrant neighborhoods that suddenly aren't speaking English, and oh, they're afraid of Spanish. No, they think that their kids shouldn't be turned away from a job at McDonald's because they don't speak Spanish. That was one witness's testimony in Congress, a black guy from Los Angeles. Settlers, why does it make a difference that you're a settler? No, it isn't that we just first come, first serve. No, it's that settlers created this country. It wasn't here. And yeah, a lot of things change when we bring in particularly such large numbers. I mean, there's a reason that the main immigration restrictionist group in the country is called Numbers USA, not, Mexicans suck USA. It's that we do need to assimilate people to this wonderful country of ours where we do learn to be tolerant and not practice racism or anti-Semitism and respect one another. Oh, well, for those of you who think that anti-Semitism has gotten worse, the ADL does studies on this every year, and every year they find that the main practitioners of anti-Semitism are your Hispanic friends. So you might want to reconsider the mass just amnestying them all as they're coming in. No, we do have a wonderful country, and we need to take time to assimilate people, not let them live in ghettos and bring in their cultures. There's a reason they left their cultures to come to our culture, and we didn't leave our culture to go to theirs.
When you say the settlers created the country, are you including the enslaved Americans as settlers, or is that a separate group?
Yes, I am, actually.
They were settlers?
Not settlers in that sense, but I mean, as many people have pointed out, we are not a multiracial country, we are not a multicultural country, we are a biracial country. For 400 years, this country was black and white. And we have had black people here as long as white people.
Is this a biracial country?
And African Americans, can I finish this point? It seems to have set off the crowd. Look, African Americans obviously got the short end of the stick for about 200 years. This is why I was explaining on the last panel. This is why we have civil rights. This is why we have constitutional provisions. This is why we allow, this is why we have affirmative action. It wasn't the Rainbow Coalition. It was to make up, to redress specific grievances done to African Americans, slavery, Jim Crow laws, and now suddenly, you know, everybody's running across the border and, oh, me too, I'm part of this. No, 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 no. No, civil rights are for African Americans. They are not for people who arrived yesterday or last week. We didn't do anything to you. Republicans didn't do anything to anybody.
Okay, okay.
I mean, there's just, wow, I don't even know where to start. So in that long-winded rant, you proceeded to insult people in a racist way and then have the audacity to say that our immigration policies are racist or allowing more immigrants in would lead to more racism. It's absurd.
How is anything I said racist?
How is what you said? You just talked about people speaking Spanish and how parents don't want to hear that because they're concerned that their kids might want to end up working at McDonald's. You're assuming that people are coming into this country.
No, you weren't listening.
Yeah.
No, there was a testimony before Congress from LA communities where black witnesses were going in saying, my kid applied to the local McDonald's, they wouldn't hire him because he didn't speak Spanish. It is mostly black communities that are being overwhelmed with illegal immigrants, and to be mocking them and saying they're afraid of Spanish people, I think is very dismissive and insulting.
Well, here's what happens in this hold on.
I'm going to have you put the holster on right inside your belt loop there.
Jarrett Maupin gets his weapon. You might recognize him as a high-profile organizer in the minority community. Just last month, he led marches on Phoenix Police headquarters after an officer shot an unarmed man.
We want his badge. We want his gun. We want his job.
Today, he accepted an invitation to look at things from the other side, agreeing to go through a force-on-force training session with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. 3 scenarios where you have to decide to shoot or not shoot. Scenario 1 is a call about a man casing cars in a parking lot. Maupin approaches the man and starts asking questions.
Look. Where you have your hand in your gun? You're looking for your vehicle. What kind of car do you drive? Where you have your hand in your gun? What kind of car do you drive? It's my car, man.
Oh. Maupin, the officer, is shot. It happens that fast.
At what time did you think that it was time for you to address the use of force that was given?
When he came to the back of the vehicle, and was hiding.
you know, I could sense something was wrong.
Scenario 2, a call of 2 men fighting.
What's going on today, gentlemen?
What's wrong with you?
What's going on today, gentlemen?
What do you want?
What's happening here?
What's wrong with
Back
you?
up.
Huh? What are you doing, man? Hey!
Hey, he shouldn't approach me. He shouldn't approach me. He shouldn't approach me. He shouldn't approach me.
What happened in there?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You just shot him?
Hey, he rushed me.
Tell me why you shot.
Well, I've shot because he was within that zone. You know, I felt there was an imminent threat. I didn't necessarily see him armed, but he came clearly to do some harm to the officer, to my person. It's hard to make that call. It shakes you up.
Again, an unarmed man was shot. Scenario 3, a call about a possible burglar walking down the street. Maupin gets him on the ground. He's not complying.
I need you to keep your hands up, sir.
For what?
Because I need to check that waistband.
Well, why? What are you doing,
Because I don't know what you have under there.
Everybody, look at this guy. What are you doing?
No shots fired, but the suspect did have a hidden knife in his waistband. I went through the scenarios too, without seeing what Maupin did.
So, do you have keys, or do you have anything to show me that?
Don't worry about it.
No, I need to talk to you. Come on out over here. Well, I'm dead. Maricopa County Sheriffs, get on the ground. Get on the ground. Both of you, get on the ground. Get on the ground.
For what?
Get back. Get back.
Same results for both of us. Things happen very fast out here. I asked Maupin what his biggest takeaway from this exercise will be.
I didn't understand how important compliance was, but after going through this, yeah, my attitude has changed. This is all unfolding in 10 to 15 seconds. People need to comply with the orders of law enforcement officers for their own sake.